Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to attend another one of our webinars. This particular webinar is on the tips and tricks of managing inventory. And my partner in Acumatica Guru, Tim O'Sullivan, will be doing the demonstration. This is your meeting. If you have questions, please go ahead and type them in. And at some point, we may even open the mic for everybody to just chat. So let's get started. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We're kind of continuing our series of the webinars that we've been doing. I just want to point everybody to our website. If you go into our resource page and go to our blog section, we have posted the last one that we did on the workflows in Acumatica and creating notifications. We've also got others that we've done, shipping container. The last one that I did was the set up generic inquiries and dashboards, and then just a good bit of information there on our web page. So it takes a little time to kind of get these in a form that makes a lot of sense. So once we do the webinar, we then post the blog post after, and then we'll get those out to you. I'm also going to make my kind of script page available as usual. And Patricia, I don't know if we're sending those out. I assume we are, but if not, they'll be part of the blog post as well. So
yeah, I believe everybody gets an email after the meeting with the documents.
Okay, perfect. So I don't know how much tricks are going to be in here, but they're definitely going to be a number of tips. So went through and kind of thought of some things that would probably make good use for a lot of different people. There's some that are more generic to the system, and then there are others that are going to be really specific to kind of order management and inventory. So I've got about 9 or 10 of them. We'll start jumping in and going through them. Really, the first one is, as users, when you come into the system, how can you be more productive? Right now, I have a dashboard set to the controller dashboard. But if your system administrator have allowed your users to interact with their profile, the users can actually come in and go to the My Profile section where your username is. Go to My Profile, and then about halfway down, there is your home page. And you'll see that mine is set to the controller page right now. But I can definitely go and set that to anything that I have access rights to as the user that is logged in. So one of the things you can do is you can filter your grid by just dashboards. So if you wanted to pick a different dashboard, you can filter that down and go grab a different one. Maybe I want to see a holistic view of my customers. So I set that profile or homepage to customer view and save it, and then refresh the page. And then when I come back in, if I want to go to my homepage, I just hit the logo in the top left corner, and that's going to bring up that new dashboard for the customer view page. And again, that is, as long as your administrator of Acumatica allows you to interact with your profile as a user, you can go in and update those and modify those, assuming you have access to them. So that's kind of number one. The second one is a lot of times people are coming from dated ERPs and they're used to doing keyboard shortcuts and those type of things. Well, we have the same thing in Acumatica. If you go into the universal search, and if I can spell right, and go to the help topics, it's going to bring up this shortcut keys. If you click on that, it's going to open up a new tab and take you to the shortcut keys help file. And it's going to give you, the key that you're going to, or key combination that you would use. It's going to specify, what that key or key combination is going to do in the system. Just a couple that kind of I use on a daily basis is the F3 key. And the F3 key, what that does is if I'm in a specific form, so I'll pull up a journal transaction because it's easy to show on a sub account. And if I go into, you know, any of the, let me just do a new one here. And if I click on the account, I can pick up, you know, a cash account. And then if I come into the sub account, if I put my cursor in the first segment and hit F3, then I'm going to see the first 3 digits are going to correspond to this lookup value. Do the same thing on the second grouping. Put my cursor on there, and now I'm going to get department. So that is in every screen. So if I'm in my batch number and I hit F3, it's going to pull the list of values up that I have available, just as if I hit the magnifying glass. A couple of others that I like to use. One is Alt-G, which Alt-G, if I can find it here, Alt-G opens your current workspace, which takes you to the menu basically. So if I'm in a specific screen and I hit Alt-G, it's going to take me to that menu of the screen that I'm in or on. So it's just a real quick way to open that up. Another one is Control-Q. So if I'm down in a screen and I want to go up to the search bar, I can hit Control-Q and it's taking me right there. I don't have to leave the keyboard, and then I can do, you know, my search, you know, those type of things. Another one is F4. So if I'm in a screen that can go from form view or grid view, I can hit the function 4 key, and that is going to take me into the form or grid mode just by hitting that key. It's a, you know, a time saver. If you need to see all the rows, you know, a good one to do that on would be our sales order screen. So if I'm in the sales order screen and I go into one and I've got a lot of fields, a lot of columns on my form, I can hit the F4 field and then see everything in a form view, which makes it a lot easier for data entry or just seeing everything that's potentially associated with that item row. So again, just look up shortcut keys or key commands or those type of things, and you'll get the key and the key combinations that that are available in Acumatica. Okay, the next one is file maintenance. And this one kind of applies to, again, generally throughout the system. I'm going to go into our stock item screen and kind of make this a little more to what we were talking about, inventory and distribution. So I'm going to go into my favorite demo item, the Lego 500 set. And what this allows me to do is we have the ability to do file attachments. So in Acumatica on this page, the file attachment, I can load images for the item, or I can just add additional files to this. But what I'm going to show you is the ability to edit that from the file maintenance side, but then also do versioning. So right now you'll see I've got one file attachment loaded for this stock item. It's the AA Lego 500 JPEG. But I've actually loaded a couple, another version. So it started out looking a little different. It didn't have this red background behind it. I added that and then uploaded it again. So what does that look like? So if I go into the file button and I go into edit, that's going to open up a new tab and it's going to get me the file maintenance screen. And then you'll see I've got two versions of this same file. So my file name didn't change, but I've got a version that doesn't have that red background, and I've got a version that has the red background. So if I go in and highlight the version 1 and hit view selected version, it's going to then give me a file that I can open, and you can see the background doesn't have the red on this. Now, if I go into the second one and do view selected version and open up the same file, we're going to see now that I get a red background. So again, Acumatica is now controlling that versioning. And again, if I upload a new one, I've done another one where I have a green background. It's the same file name. And if I hit open here, I think it's this one, and upload, I'm going to get a version 3 now. And maybe this was the one that I did. Let's see. Yeah, so now I've got a green background. So I've got one without, one with a red, and one with a green. And then the other thing that's a lot of people don't utilize is we have this comment section or an original name. So you can actually add some additional information around this file, which then makes it exposed through our search tools. So, you know, I can, you know, type another one here, Acumatica. And now those comments can be searchable in our universal search. If I needed to name a file something differently, I can. And one of the things that, you know, we stress and try to through implementation is if you need to be able to search for your files, is coming up with a naming convention that I can either search on the actual name of the file to get results, or I can search from the comments, or again, an original name if it's different than the file name. So you have a lot of kind of cross-referenceable things that can be used to help expedite getting to that information at a later time. Okay, so that's the file versioning for Acumatica. And then we'll jump into the order screen now for a little while. And on our sales order, I'm going to go into an existing sales order. And one of the things that Acumatica kind of helps you do, and a lot of people don't use, a couple of things, is the copy paste. So if I utilize the same type of order with the same type of items, and I do that, you know, on a consistent basis, I can actually create a template for those to be able to use when creating new items. So think of it like when you're setting up item classes and vendor classes and those things, I'm templating all of those settings. Well, I can do that with all of this information that is being entered on across the tabs and the details grid for, you know, adding additional items. So kind of in conjunction with this, a lot of people forget that you have a couple of ways to enter items on a sales order. This add items button is kind of a time saver. If you add items onto a screen and you need to be able to kind of search and look up quantity available, quantity on hand, if there's alternate IDs associated with that. Another one kind of related in this sense is if I want to see from this customer, what have I sold them in the past or through a date range, I can say, you know, I want to see all the available items that I have sold since a specific date window. In this instance, I've only sold this customer Lego sets, and I sold them 10 on the last sale for $110. So a little bit of power there from adding items in that sense. The other side is if I need to just drop a bunch of items onto a sales order, I can, you know, filter down to a specific warehouse if I needed to and say, well, I only want to look at retail. And then I'm just going to drop in, you know, a handful of these items. And then I can just hit add and close. It defaults to 1, but you can override that. So if I wanted to do 10 there and then add and close, then it's going to add those lines into my sales order grid. And then once those are there, then now I can go in and change price or additional quantities or what have you. But the thing that I wanted to show is I can now take this and make this grid item and everything around it a template. So I can just hit save as template, and then I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm just going to call it SO webinar and hit save. Now it looks all real busy, but when you start breaking it down, what you can see is you're seeing the different, the customer. So I can go in and change that. So if I needed a template where I didn't want the customer in there, I could blank that out. And now that everything else would be pulled in. So you'll see there's my Lego, and then all the information that's being picked up from the settings. Then once I have it, then it's there. When I come back into my sales order and hit refresh, say I go to a new sales order once this is done. So I'll go into a new one. And then now I'll have this paste from SO webinar template in there that I can now utilize. It's not going to have a customer in it, so it's going to make me put a customer in there. So I'm going to pick ABC Venture. And then now I can paste that information from that template. There we go. And then I can use that as my basis for my order. So that would be templating. One of the other things, and this I'm showing from the 2021 R1 version. And I can't remember if this is in 20 R2, I didn't look, but this line details is now something that's now in this version for sure. If I highlight an item and hit line details, in this instance, I'm going to see the line detail. Let me go back to the order that we had previously, the 6083. Then I'm going to highlight this. I've got a linked PO to this. When I go to line details, you're now going to see that I have a drop ship PO tied to this this line item. So you're getting a lot more detail that's linked together for that. So that would be using templates to kind of quickly create an order from an existing kind of templated form. The other one is when we're in a shipment, sometimes we need to print pick list, and more companies are driving to being barcode, or Acumatica is barcode enabled out of the box. So if you have scanners that are like USB scanners that are plugged into your workstation that are acting as a keyboard wedge, you can start using those keyboards or scanners as data input into Acumatica. And usually that means we need output. So what I'm going to show is I'm going to show how to add a barcode to a report. So I'm going to go to the print pick list, and we're just going to print the pick list for this one. So you can see I've got a few barcodes already on this. So I've got the location, I could put the item, I can do a barcode to when I'm done with this picking, I can scan that to confirm all my picked items right from a piece of paper if I needed to. But say I want to add the customer ID as a barcode. It's not on this report, and I need to add that. So you have to have the report designer, and you have to have report designer rights within the system to be able to do this. So when you go into your little pencil, so there's my view of the report, but if I go into the pencil, which is the parameters, you'll see I've got this edit report because I do have the report designer access. And when I click on that, it's going to then save that file as an RPS file that I can then open up in our report designer tool. And that looks something like this. So I've got my report that I've opened now in the report designer. And you can get to it a couple of different ways. I can hit open from server and do it that way. I can just click that. Let me save this. There we go. I can open it from a local file if I need to, or I can open it from the server. And you'll see that this is pointing to my demo system. I have to give a login credentials to be able to get in and edit this. And then I pick that report that I want to modify. So SO644000 is my pick list report. And then I load that into the canvas. And then now I can, I want to be able to add the customer ID as a barcode now. It's really easy to do. So I'm going to come up to my picture box and I'm just going to drag that down onto my canvas here. And I'm going to kind of resize it a little bit. And it's going to put that into an edit mode. And then you'll see I have a data section over in my properties box of the report designer. And I'm actually going to come in here and now on my source, I'm going to say, I want this to be a barcode. And when I do that, it's going to change my MIME type to be an image/BMP. And I want the code 39 just for this demo, but you can select others, if you need a UPCA or code 128, these are the ones that are supported, QR code or postnet. For this demo, I'm just going to use code 3x9. And then in my value, I want it to be this field right here. So I'm actually going to come in here and I'm going to grab this because that's my customer ID. And then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to paste this into the value. And when I tab off, you'll see now that I'm getting a barcode. So just that easy, I'm able to add a barcode to a report in Acumatica. So if I save this, we can do a couple different ways. I can save it to the Acumatica server and I can save this as a new version. So I'm going to say added customer ID barcode. It's always kind of good practice to put your initials and the date that you did it. So 6/23/21. And when I hit OK, it's going to actually upload this up to the Acumatica server. And now when I come back into my report, let's go back into the pick list. If I did it right, we should get the customer ID now too as a barcode. So that quick, we were adding that barcode, and then you can just barcode everything if you need to, and then start utilizing that for data entry. On the parameters, just so you know, if you're not familiar with the report designer, I did a new version. You'll see that I've now got the original, I've got version 2 and version 3. So when I set that, it now set my last version as active. But again, kind of another tip is I can always go back to the original and make that active. And then when I run that report, just pick the same one. Now it's going to go back in time and only show me what was available at that time. So again, another powerful tool that you can have multiple versions of a report out there and go and select one to be active at that point. So if I want to set the version 3 back to active, I just set that, come back in and run the report again. And now my net new changes are going to now show up on the report. So that's adding barcodes to a report. And again, you can do that. That same process can be done on any report that are out there. Another one, go back into our sales order screen. And I'm going to use, let's see, let me search for more. There we go. And now what I want to do with this one is kind of the same thing, kind of like what we did for the template. But at this point, I don't want to template all of the, like every information in the tabs. I don't want to pick that up. I only want to deal with the grid items. So I need to be able to, maybe I've got a 200 line order and I'm going to be using roughly these same items over and over and over again. What I may want to do is I may want to take this out to an Excel sheet, and I'm going to dump this out to Excel, and then I'm going to go into the Excel sheet and make some edits, maybe change the quantities. But for visionary purposes, assume that this was, a 300 line order. So I'm going to open this in Excel. There we go. And I know it's a little bit small. So I'm going to blow that up. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to say, we've got a customer and he's going to order 500 of each of these. And I'm going to save that. And now what I want to do is I want to use this as the basis now for a new order, maybe to a different customer. So what I can do is I've saved this to my local drive, and now I can come in and create a new order, and we'll just go back to a customer. And then now you'll see I've got the upload button here. And because I did it out of an existing sales order, it pulled all of the fields, columns for my spreadsheet. Let me go back into that. I've got all of my columns there that it downloaded. So when I upload it, my mapping is already going to be there for me. Now you could also do this with just a spreadsheet that you create. And then Acumatica has the ability now that you can do a mapping from your source file, Excel or whatever, to the actual screen fields. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to upload, and I'm going to choose that same file. And now I'm going to hit the upload button. And it's going to pull up a screen and it's going to say, if you have no values, what do you want to do? Do you want to populate with that, with something? In my case, I don't. I want to leave that as it is, and I want to update the existing records here. So I'm going to hit OK, and now it's going to pull up another screen and shows me my mapping. And again, because I did the export out of an existing sales order, all of my mapping is automatically done for me. So here's the Acumatica that it's going into, and then here's my spreadsheet file. So I can do that mapping right here within this column chooser. So I'm going to hit OK. And when I do that, it's now going to take and load in the spreadsheet file. And now I've got my quantities from the spreadsheet into my sales order. And I can hit save to get my sales order number. And now, a 400 or 500 line sales order now becomes really easy because I can manipulate it in Excel and then upload it into Acumatica. Another one that a lot of people forget about, and we run into this quite a bit, is attributes. Don't forget that you have attributes, and attributes are really powerful because it allows you to create those user-defined fields once and then use them all over the system, the same one if you need to. In this instance, I've got a header one because in the sales order screen, I don't have a tab called attributes. So the only place that I can add attributes to a sales order is in this header field. So now I can, pick from a list of values if that's how I define that attribute. The other thing is kind of tying it together. So if I go into my stock item screen, we'll go back into Lego. And you'll see now on the stock item screen, I have an attributes tab. And in this instance, the attributes are following the class. So that becomes powerful because I can, by class, I can have different attributes that that can be associated with that item class. And if I go in here, you'll see I've got one set to color right now. That same color, again, I set it up once, and I used it on the sales order in the header, and now I'm using it on the tab for my inventory item, but it's the same attribute for both. But what I can do is I can come into my item class, and on my item class setting, I go into the attributes tab, and this is where I define that. And again, I'm defining it by that item class. And now if I need to add additional, then I can just go into my attribute list and, you know, grab a different set of attributes if I needed to. So maybe I want, you know, company revenue for whatever reason on an inventory. Doesn't really make sense, but I can save that. And then when I come back in here and go into the attributes tab, now that immediately becomes available. A lot of things happen in the background, and to kind of demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the generic inquiry tool now. And I'm going to pull up an inventory item, one that I set up previously. And what I did is, all I did is I set up to my stock item. So another little trick is, if you have the ability to see customization tools, this inspect element, if I click that, it turns my cursor into a question mark. If I highlight over my inventory ID, it turns it blue. If I click on that, it's going to tell me the table and the field that I need to grab. So when I'm setting up an inquiry, you know, I know that I need my inventory item table. And in this instance, I'm going to go to the result grid, and I'm going to drop in every field or review. And this is pretty cool. If you look, if I start typing attributes, you'll see now I show all of the attributes that are associated with my inventory item table that have been added via the class ID. For whatever class is out there, these are the attributes that are there. So you'll see I've got that color underscore attributes that is there. So if I'm building reports, it's really easy now that I can kind of come in and go, I want to see my inventory ID. I want to see my inventory description. Oops. And now I want to see that attribute for that color. And you know, that quick, I'm able to add an attribute. I'm able to add it into that. And let's just, for this sake, let's come in here and say, I want my inventory number to equal that AA Lego. And then we'll save it, and then we'll run it. And the output now is going to show that attribute, that color that we selected, and it's blue. So a lot of power in attributes. So don't forget they're there, and the places that you can use them and where they're set up at. But when you immediately set that value up, it now pulls to that field. So I could also, again, add that additional, we added the additional company revenue. So again, I could come in here and add that additional attribute for company revenue. And if I rerun it, now we're going to see both of them. Now I don't have anything set for company revenue, but if I set that, saved it here, and then go to inventory items and refresh that, now I get that update. So really quick to tie all those pieces together if you need to. One other thing on inventory, a couple other things on inventory. Acumatica in 21R1 has changed the validate inventory to now it's named recalculate inventory. And this is used, so let me go back to the item real quick before we get there. Actually, I can do it here. Hang on a second. Let's get this up here. Let's close that. Let's go back to our item here. So again, at our inventory class, our item class, anytime you go in and make a change to your availability calculation sets, you have to run the recalculate inventory process. Again, it used to be called validate inventory. So if I go in and make any change to either deduct or include inventory in my quantity available calculation, I have to run this process on that item or set of items or around that. It does it by warehouse. So if I go in and say I need to reset my, I've changed the class, I want to run it for all items for the retail warehouse, I just hit process all and it will handle that. I can also rebuild the item history and replan back orders with the exception of SA order type. So if you're doing hard allocations, this replan back orders won't work, but it will on every other order type that's not using an allocated step or order type workflow. Good information around this is in the help file. So if you come over to the form reference and hit recalculate inventory, you'll see that this needs to be run anytime you change that availability calculation rule. And again, it's going to set that for the back order as long as it's not an allocated one. So some good information there. And again, this is, if you're getting values after you set the availability calculation and they don't look right, this will fix that. And it has to be run after that process is changed. Another one, and we're almost done, is in our generic inquiry again. And I'm going to pull up one that I've kind of set up. And it's now in the generic inquiry tool, I'm able to do mass updates, mass deletions, and mass creations. And I'm going to put a cautionary tale note out here right off. This can be a very dangerous thing that I'm going to show, but it can also be an extreme time saver if you're making quick edits and you need to, update things in a really quick way. This is a really good tool to do that for. So what I've done is I've added my inventory item screen again, and I'm going to go back to it and go into inventory, and I'm going to go into stock items again, and I'm going to go back into our Lego. And just for purposes of this demo, I want to set the country of origin for all items that don't have it, that's null. I want to set it to US. So you'll see Lego doesn't have it. So I want to update this one and any others that don't have that country of origin set, but it could be anything in any screen. So what I've done is I've set my table to be the inventory items. And I'm going into my condition and I'm saying where that country of origin is empty. And on my result grid, I'm pulling the inventory ID and that country of origin in. And now what I want to do is on my entry point, I want to make my entry screen the stock item screen. And I want to now enable the ability to do mass record updates. And when you click this, this mass update fields is going to be enabled. So if I click on that, you'll see this now gets enabled. So now I can then go in and set on from my results, I want to actually update that country of origin. So really easy to set up, but can be very dangerous. So I want to stress that. Do it at your own will, and don't call us if you do it and you mess up something. So now what I want to do is I want to run this. So I'm going to hit View Inquiry, and I'm going to hit OK to save the changes. And what happens is now in this inquiry results screen, I get this new Actions button. And that Actions button says Update or Update All. So you'll see this is showing all of the ones, and I've got 8 pages, 255 records of items that don't have a country of origin. And I want to mass change them all to be US. So what I want to do, and I'm just going to do this first page of them, I'm going to set that, but I'm going to uncheck this NA one because I know that's going to cause me a problem if I don't do that. And now I'm going to go up to the Actions, and I'm going to go Update, not Update All, because I'm only selecting the ones on this one page. And I'm going to Update, and it's going to give me a pop-up here that's now going to let me set the field. So I could update multiple fields through this process as well. I'm going to just change this one. So I have to enable it by selecting it. And then I can come over here and pick from a list of values or just type US. So I'm just going to hit US there and hit yes and select. And then when I hit finish, it's going to update and add US to all of these items that are selected here. And for whatever reason, these are probably non-stock. That's probably what that is. I didn't filter non-stocks out. So all of my stock items that had country of origin, it has now updated with US in the country of origin field. And if I go into Legos again and refresh, now US is in that country of origin. So again, really powerful in the sense that it was super easy to set up and make that mass change if I needed to from that. And again, this carries, I'm using the inventory item screen, the stock item screen, but this could be any screen in Acumatica that I can build a generic inquiry, which is all of them. So that's kind of what I wanted to show from that standpoint. The only other thing that I would say is also don't forget about our mobile app that Acumatica has. So I'm showing it on an iPhone, but kind of tying it to the order management side. You know, if you have access rights and you have the mobile app, you could actually come in and interact with the sales order screen right from the application here. So it's actually loading all of the sales orders that are in the system. And I just happened to be on one before, kind of cached it. So I can go into that 6083 and I could enter new sales orders. I can interact with existing sales orders. So you'll see I've got all of my, shipping information. I've got my user defined fields. There's that color. So I could actually set it, to blue there. Here's all of my items on the sales order. I can interact with those and change quantities. Maybe I want, again, 500. And all of that can be done within the mobile application. And then if I hit save and went back into the desktop and looked at that same order, I would see the changes that were done right from the mobile application. So with that, I'll open it back up to Patricia, and if she wants to open it up to questions, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Tim. That was great. Let me see if I can unmute everybody all at once, or how does this work? Or if somebody has a question, raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can type your question and we'll answer it that way. Wow. No questions. That either means you did a fantastic job or you put everybody to sleep. I don't know which one. No, I'm kidding. Very good.
Well, and again, these will be made available on our blog post on pcbennett.com.
Oh, we do have a question. Oh, we don't have a question. Yep. Very good. Everybody, thank you so much for your time today. And there's a question about if we have a history view of SKUs.
History view
of
so there is. It's in a report. So if you look in the reports section of the inventory menu, you'll see that I've got a historical inventory balance and I've got a historical inventory valuation. So those two reports, I can go back in time. And honestly, I don't know of many middle market ERPs that can do this. I mean, I came from the Microsoft space and none of the Microsoft products had this out of the box back then. Now that could have changed. But if I go into historical balance, I can go back in time to a specific period or a period range. So if I wanted to go back to January of 2020, and if I want to look at just a specific item, I could and hit run report. And then that's going to give me, you know, what was my beginning quantity, what was my ending quantity for that period for that item. So.
And Ron, I did unmute you. So if you have any more questions, anybody else, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody so that if you guys have questions, you can go ahead and ask them. You will need to unmute yourselves. Okay. Oops. So if we have no questions, then, you know, you guys can always reach out to us. We're here to help. And thank you so much for attending today's meeting. We look forward to the next one.
Thanks, everybody.